we speak about the destruction of Sodom, that Hashem destroyed them at a level that in the history of existence, other than the Mabul, there was never such a destruction. It was a cosmic destruction, that there's no trace of that society, of that existence. That was the level of evil that they were. They were ro'im v'chatom l'Hashem ma'od. They were evil between man and man, between man and God, at the most extreme level. And we have, if you look in Perek Yud Ches, Pasuk Yud Zayin, Vayikumu b'shem ha'noshim, after the three angels, they finished their agency with Avram, informing him that they're going to have a child, and he healed Avram to recover from his milah. Vayashkivu al pnei Sodom, they gazed upon Sodom. V'Avram holich imoim l'shalchem. Avram is going with them to send them off. He's escorting them. So Rashi says, what's vayashkifu? Kol hashkafa shebenikru l'ro. Whenever we find the term hashkafa, he gazed, it's within a negative context. Chutz mashkifa monkochcha. Except fashkif monkochcha, she gazed from the heavenly abode. Why? Why over there is something positive? Shegodol koach matnas aniyim. Great is the value and the power of giving gifts to the poor. Shehofech midas harogiz l'rachmin. It overturns the attribute of wrath to rachmin, even though it's called midas hadin. But when is the midas hadin? When there's rogiz. When the wrath of Hashem cannot be contained because of the level of prosecution, therefore there's din. So the Madas Aniyim overturns the Midas HaRoges, the attribute of Roges, of wrath, to Rachmim. The Malbim explains, we find that when we speak about Hashem's wrath, it's referred to Ever V'zam in the Haggadah. When we speak about the various plagues that took place in Egypt, was every plague. 4 plagues, 5 plagues, whatever it was. So we cite Psukim from Navi, when it refers to the plagues in Egypt, says, Evro v'zam, Evro. Evro is a level of wrath. So the Malbim explains, when a person crosses the line, that activates that a very intense level of wrath, which is Midas Hadin. What's Evro? Over. You know, you went too far already. You passed over. You crossed that line. Once you cross that line, there's no going back. That activates the wrath. So Midas HaRachmim, Madas Aniyim, giving the gifts to the poor, is able to overturn even that. It could retract and nullify that wrath. Okay? So Hashem says, Hashem Omar HaMachasni me'Avram Ashani Yoser. Am I going to conceal from Avram what I'm about to do? Meaning he's going to destroy Sodom, not to inform Avram. It's not the right thing to do. So therefore, is it possible I'm going to conceal from Avram what I'm going to do? So Rashi says, why? Why does Hashem feel he has to inform him that he's going to destroy them? So Rashi explains in Pasuk Yud Zayin, Lo yofel li lasos dov zeh shelo midaito. It's inappropriate for me to do this without his being aware of this. Why? Ani nosati lo ha'oretz hazos. I've given him this land, the chamisha kroch ma'alol shaloin, the 5 towns or cities, which were this metropolis of Sodom, they belong to him. Shenemar ha'gvul ha'knani mitzidon bocha Sodoma v'amora. Karasi also Avram Avamon Goyim. He's the father of all nations. Va'ashmir sabon v'lodi lov. Is it possible I should destroy the children and not inform the father? Shu Ovi, he's my beloved. Therefore, I'm going to inform him. So let's understand. Even after, so now that Hashem informs him, you know, it's like a person calls up a person, God forbid, Chas Shalom, he says, you know, I'm taking your son and putting him before the firing squad because I love you. Therefore, I'm telling you. How does that somehow indicate? Because since you're the what, I gave you these nations, and you're the father of nations, it would be inappropriate to do this without informing you. Why is it inappropriate? And now that I inform you, and you destroy them, what does make it? How did I address something was inappropriate, now it's appropriate.
Rabbi, who is Hashem speaking to here?
He's speaking to himself. Speaking to himself. He's giving it a background why Hashem, the Torah tells us why Hashem is revealing it to Avram, because it would be inappropriate for him not to do it.
Does we ever see that before, that Hashem says to himself?
Yeah. I just want to address this point. Then we'll get back to what you're asking. Okay? I mean, now that he's informing him, now it's appropriate. Now that he informs him, it's appropriate. What makes it appropriate? Let me say what I'm going to say, then you can ask the questions and make comments. And then it says afterwards, V'Avram hoyu yil godol v'otzum. And after we have this background on the narrative, the Torah tells us that Avram will be this great, powerful nation, v'nivru kol yoretz, and all the nations will be blessed through them. Ki yadativ, and there's a famous pasuk, Ki yadativ ma'sheyitzav es bonov es beiso achrav. Because I know that he will command his children and his household after him, v'shamru derech Hashem, and they will keep the way of Hashem, lasas stokum mishpot, to do righteousness and justice, to bring upon Avram all that he said he would bring upon him. I mean, how does all this fall? So Rashi addresses all this. Why is all of a sudden mentioning Avram is going to be this great nation, this special nation? Because when you mention a tzaddik, immediately you digress, to identify what his value is, and you establish him in the context of bracha. Okay, I mean, seemingly I'm using the word disjointed. One doesn't flow into the other. I'm informing him because of that, which we have to understand. And now that he informs him, what does that add? That if you with him, because it's not right to do it behind his back. I'm going to destroy them, and you should know I'm going to destroy them. And then all of a sudden we speak about how righteous he is and how great he is, because that's zechet tzaddik levercha. Okay. We had this by Noach, right? Elul told us Noach was about to speak about his children. And then we say, Noach is tzaddik. So also, Chazal say over there, why do we digress from what we're about to say? Because when you mention a tzaddik, you have to quantify who he is. Noach is tzaddik, Tomei b'dorosov. Here also, we're speaking about Avram. Once you mention Avram, we quantify him, how great he is, what his potential is, what the future is. Okay? This is what I was thinking. We find that Avram, when he's informed that Hashem's going to destroy them, he immediately goes into a dialogue with Hashem, maybe the 50 tzaddikim. And the merit of 50 tzaddikim, you should spare them. Hashem says, no, if they're 50, I will spare them. Maybe the 45. No, maybe so many, till finally there aren't even 10 tzaddikim, and therefore I will destroy them. They have no saving grace. And therefore they'll be destroyed. Avram leaves, it's the end of the story, they're destroyed. And Avram entered into a dialogue which was so strong. In the dialogue, back and forth, he says to Hashem, Anochi ofav efer. And he says, Cholilaloch. And he says, it would be profane for you to destroy them because it will be a chil Hashem. Because people will say that just as you destroyed the generation of the great flood, at a whim, you just destroy them. So, therefore, Avram is concerned that unless it's clear that these people are truly evil, it will be chil Hashem. So that he's entering, and he speaks very strongly. He says, Anochi ofer v'efer. I am ofer, I am dust, I am ash. Meaning, Avram, if you take a look at Rashi there, Avram felt he maybe was speaking slightly disrespectful, too strongly. And he says, if not for you, I would be ofer v'efer. If I wouldn't have come out of the kiln, I'd be ash. I would have been incinerated. And if I would have been killed by the 4 kings, I would have decomposed into dust. So it's not that I don't recognize who I am and who you are, but that was an expression of humility. From those psukim, those words, we learn that Avram was the second most humble person who ever lived. Avram, the greatest, Avram was the second most humble. David was the third, okay? Now, what exactly is over here? So what I once said, but I want to add this morning. The Gemara tells us in the Dorim, and asks, why did Klal Yisrael go to Egypt? Why did we spend 200 years in Egypt? Why was the Bris Beit Absorim, which began at the birth of Yitzchak? Ger Zaracha Be'eretz Lo Lohem. Your children will be strangers in land which is not theirs. They'll be enslaved, they'll be afflicted. The nation that will enslave them will be judged. And after that time, they're going to go out with great wealth, which is what happened. What precipitated the bondage in Egypt? So one opinion is, which is known to everyone, because Avram asked a question, at Avram's level, it was an inappropriate question. So as a result of that, Hashem says, you have to be atoned for this. The only atonement is your progeny has to go to Egypt. So we ask the question then. We say, Lo yumsu ovos albonim. If a person sins, the children don't carry the sins of the parents. So why will the clouds have to endure and go through this bondage and all this suffering for this extended period of time because Avram sinned? Let Avram be punished. Why Klal Yisrael has to be punished? So we explained that this issue over here, Klal Yisrael has to be an eternal people, and they have to maximize their potential. If in the founding of patriarch is Avram, if there's a deficiency in the foundation, the structure itself has a weakness in it, and the ultimate cannot be addressed. The potential cannot be met because of the deficiency. So we have to weed out that deficiency, and therefore, and that's why Mitzrayim is called the Kur HaBarzel. It's called the smelting. It's called the smelter. As when you want to smelt out the impurity of iron, you put it through the smelter. We had to go through the smelter to extract that impurity as a result of the Chet Avodah Marishon. When a father sins, that has nothing to do with the child. The deficiencies in that person. But Avram, because he's the founding father of Klal Yisrael, the DNA of Klal Yisrael is defective DNA. As a result of that, we have to somehow weed out that deficiency so it should not manifest itself in the ultimate and interfere and not allow certain things to happen. Okay, that's what we said. But the Gemara says there's another reason why we went to Mitzrayim. After Avram was the victor, the king of Sodom comes to Avram and he says to Avram, "Tein li hadnefesh v'rechush hachloch." Give me the people, you take the spoils. Right? That's what the king of Sodom says to Avram. Avram says, "I will not take, not michut v'atzroch now. I will not take a thread. I will not take a bootstrap from you. Why? Because you're not going to say ani yashati as Avram. You're not going to say you made Avram wealthy. Therefore, I will take nothing from you. Okay?" And it says in that schus, we merited. The Gemara says in Chulin tzitzis. That he said, "I will not take a thread." We merited tzitzis. And that he said, "I will not take a bootstrap," we merited the mitzvah of tefillin, which we have straps, leather straps. But nevertheless, it was considered a sin. Why? Because what Avram should have said, "I'm taking the nefesh." He had the opportunity to be machdis them tachas kafi ashchina. He could have taken them and converted all of them because he was the victor. The people were his. And that he let pass this opportunity, ultimately, that's why, and they were destroyed. That's the reason why we went to Mitzrayim. That was the chet. That was the sin of Avraham Avinu. He had this opportunity, he lost it, and therefore we had to pay the price. That was the failing of Avram. Okay, that's the Gemara. One opinion of the Gemara. So as a result of that, let's say Hashem, why did he speak so strongly and go to task with Hashem? Because if Avram somehow was able to save them, and they wouldn't be destroyed, Avram still can convert them to monotheism. If he converts them, then the claim against him that you could have been machdizim tachs kant ve'ashchina, that claim is no longer there. It's not on the record. But if he destroys them, it's over. It's etched in stone. We're going to Egypt. The Jews have to spend 210 years in Egypt. Therefore, Hashem says, if I'm going to destroy them, hamachasni mi Avram, am I going to conceal this Avram? And then he'll say, I didn't have the opportunity to correct my failing. So Hashem says, I will inform him. And Hashem will say he's going to task with him. He's going to present those questions. Are there 50 tzaddikim, 45 tzaddikim? And so how does it follow? That's what Hashem is saying. How could I conceal from him? Because afterwards it's like I did it behind his back. I didn't give him the opportunity to try to correct the wrong. So I will tell him, and he will understand, you cannot correct that wrong. Why? Because after he went into dialogue with him, he realized it's hopeless. So because originally he didn't take them to convert them. That time lapse, they became so evil, it was beyond the point of return. That's the understanding. So how does it follow? We have, Avram has a potential that his progeny should be this great, powerful nation. When? That's only if we're able to meet our potential. And therefore, that's why we have to go to Egypt. We have to go to Mitzrayim because we have this potential. Unless we go to Golus, that potential cannot come about. And we're meant to be Goy Godlu v'Otzum. Therefore, I'm informing him that he should understand that the only way that you're able to correct that deficiency is only by going to Mitzrayim. That's how this follows. Why am I telling him that he should understand that he can't correct it? Therefore, because they have a potential, and the only way this potential could be met is only by them being destroyed. Is by the Jews going to Egypt, because they're beyond hope. It's not recoverable. Your mistake cannot be corrected. And therefore he says, and why will Klal Yisrael have that potential? Ki yadativ l'manu sheitzav his bonov his beisu achrov, because I know he will command his children, his household, therefrom the shamru derech Hashem lasas tzedakah mishpat. Because Avram will set that dynamic in motion, where ultimately everything will come about. And therefore Avram was deserving of the bracha because he had that capacity to be able to address all this. This is how I explained the pasuk, how the flow, one pasuk flows into the other.